That was legal, wasn't it? Because it was. Yeah, he did, but it was legal because he was moving up and down with his hand.
Yeah,
those were legal, I think.
I know it's accidental.
Yeah.
Please watch what you do in the cage.
Yes, sir.
I am not deducting a point.
To me, in real time, they look to be illegal knees.
Yeah.
And then you see the replay and you're like, oh, wait, this was kind of like, what was it, the Chris Weidman versus Mousasi fight, where it's kind of pulling him up, right?
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people didn't know is obviously under normal circumstances, that could have been left to play out. In Ontario, they defined it as an old rule where they would still consider fingertips down. I mean, the sequence of events, obviously, I ignored the first three, got back to the fence. I'm thinking Mosvar was dragging his hand, trying to put his hand down. I'm thinking, so I was more preventative, if you know what I mean. And that's why when I interjected, that's why I was never even in the thought process of deducting a point. Unfortunately, it's another one of the things that we're left holding the can for and dealing with, that we're going from state to state or country to country, not outside of America or North America, obviously Canada here, but they referred to an old rule, should we say. And the end result of that is that, you might have saw afterwards, Andy Foster was quite vocal about it. He was talking to Ariel because I'd put a call into Andy. I was appealing, and I'd done the same with, the UFC and Hunter Campbell and Mark Ratner, and kind of appealing to them to say, guys, come on, it's 2024. Can we not get this together? Because who's the one left holding the can? It's me, or which other ref was doing it. An hour before, generally we'll have, with a commission, we can have like a pre-fight, meeting just to go over some things, and that was one of the specifics said, and just another unfortunate set of circumstances because, and look, at the end, people are going to look at it and they're going to say one thing, they're going to say another, but they're not party to the information that we are. But the net result of it is that hopefully now it's going to get a definitive kick up the ass, this rule is, in terms of clarification. We talk about these unified rules, and by all intents and purposes that's what they're meant to be, but clearly they're not. But the upshot of it is that it's already been proposed. We have a new definition, we have agreed on some language. That then has to take its natural course, which means that this summer's ABC convention, it will be tabled, that we propose and agree. That's the most important part, is that everybody gets on board and just singularly puts this forward, for everyone involved. What other sport at the top level?
I was going to say.
Tell me one other.
It's like MMA is already confusing enough to like new fans. Like, put aside the hardcore fans who this will just piss off enough anyway, because it's like, a confusing situation. But like the most complicated thing about football is offside. But at least no matter where you watch
but
football,
offside's offside.
Yeah, and also it's the same wherever you go. Whereas you never know what you're going to get, and they do sometimes remind you at the start of the broadcast. But it's like even if you did watch that, it doesn't always make it
remind
clear
you what.
That what the specifics of the rule set is for that show.
Not really. And you might get very subtle nuances.
Yeah.
But the upshot is, look, I have to apply common sense and deal real time. And to perpetuate this, in Ontario, we also didn't have anytime replay. We don't have the luxury of that.
So you were just worrying the whole night. What the
it was back to the old rule of, if we did have to consult anytime replay, the fight would have to be called and be over. We're going to propose a second removal, one for clarification, and hopefully we're going to get rid of finally the 12 to 6 elbow definition. Again, it's going to be proposed. Obviously, there's a lot of people involved in this, and hopefully common sense will prevail. Even if they were elbowing the body, we still had to call it. You don't want to remove position and stuff, but we don't make the rules necessarily, but it is our job to enforce them. Like I said, what I was faced with in Ontario, we were told explicitly beforehand, with the best will in the world and respect to everyone involved, I have to deal with the what we were given, and I try to apply real-time common sense and preventative and be fair, etc., etc. And like I said, hopefully the upshot now is that this will get speeded up and we can get uniformity.
It just seems with a lot of these rules, there's a lack of knowledge when it comes to it, because it's like you can kick someone in the head,
well, you know,
as
about
hard
how
as you can.
I mean, that was literally the major conversation, right? For the first one in New Jersey, when it all came together, there were some very concerned physicians that were like, "Oh yeah, we've seen people break boards with that," or whatever
that
it was.
was part of it. And you said New Jersey because 2001 and Big John, etc., pivotal guys. Nick Lembo, these people were pivotal. Larry Hazard, they were pivotal in the formation of. So the adoption and the thought process behind because it was even crazier back then. And we don't have this anywhere else in the world because the US is obviously state driven. It's governed by state to state. When we go to entire countries elsewhere, we don't have this problem anywhere outside of North America.
And does that relate to back in the day where it was banned in a lot of states and it wasn't fully legalized yet? Did they kind of have to make the rules up as they go? Yeah, so that's kind of why some places allow one hand down or two hands down.
Well, they all had the same rules in the beginning, right? And then the problem is now that rules have changed, it's like, all right, now let's go to all 50 states again with that same idea. These people have limited budgets, right? So they don't convene very often, getting them together.
What I care about is the betterment and the advancement of the sport, fairness and equality. You know what I mean? Well, how can you call something unified when it's anything but? It's there or thereabouts, but it's just like, you get caught out in these, unfortunately, you get caught out in these little nuances that potentially turn out to be bigger things.
Well, so kind of pie in the sky question. Let's say we were to start from scratch on this kind of stuff. Obviously, we can't do that, but in a perfect world, would it be the ABC just kind of runs over the entire world and they bring those rule sets and work with those municipalities to try to get these rules
They
across?
do in general. Like for people like myself, obviously anywhere else in the world, other countries, they will adopt the unified rules. And like I said, they're there or thereabouts. It's not like anything is wildly different. Yeah. The sport is still, obviously you'll have subtle differences, like when one went to Denver, they went to Colorado, they approved their rule set. Look, that's
They're
down
in Kansas now too,
that's down to the state athletic commissions, that's their business and what they do. But I just think that, look, we've been doing this long enough now. 2024, please make the sport look the same. It's impossible to expect everybody to know the rules, right? And when I say everybody, I mean the general public. Look, going to any pub on a Saturday night, how many fucking Jose Mourinho's have you got there? Yeah. Or Sir Alex Ferguson's or you know what I mean? Yeah. They all know, they have this interpretation. It's not the watching. Look, don't even get me started on the judging. Yeah. The refereeing's bad enough when they think they know the rules. That's a utopia I don't think you're going to get, but certainly, categorically, there should be a level playing field for everyone else involved in the sport. First of all, the fighters. That's the first thing, so that they understand wherever they go, they're not going to... You go into a fighter before, we'll have a conversation with fighters before the fight. That's the last place. That's the last place we expect a fighter to be able to, take something in for the first time, or we're explaining something to them in general. You're not going in there and giving them you're jumping from sport to sport. But I think it's incredibly selfish because I've been there, and I feel for the fighters. If I'm trying to explain something to them in a dressing room an hour before they fight, is he expected to remember? And I don't blame them for not, Fights are crazy things. But if you're trying to, generally we'll go over the sticking points, the things that you want to prevent. I try and make it fairly concise. Fighters don't want to sit there and be lectured. It's more important for me to ask them questions. I'll always begin and end on that. Do you have a specific question? And then by the end of it, and I'll always talk to them in front of their coaches too. I'll never talk to them alone. And I'll always end the conversation by saying, do you have any questions? Anything further you want me to explain?
The fact you're talking to Hunter and trying to get across to him, it's like this makes your sport and your organization look bad, because it's like, it looks like you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, it looks like we need to sort this out and get it to a position where it doesn't get these problems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a case of them not knowing what they're doing, because the UFC is the entity. That's the team, if you like. So Man United won't go and play a game in Turkey and then an hour before the fight say, by the way, there's no offside.
Yeah.
Or there's no throw-ins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or by the way, if you can't kick the ball, you can't pass back.
Right.
Or you know what I mean?
From the audience perspective,
Yeah.
it looks like how do these guys, why is there confusion? Like, this should be simple.
Of course.
Exactly,
and we say the same. I don't want there to be any fighters have enough to consider. And so do we, as refs.
Yeah, do you think that, especially with refs, it's such a thankless job of what you're doing? Do you think it makes you look bad? It looks like the ref doesn't know what they're dealing with, and it's like that's obviously not the case.
Listen, let me explain. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
And you're absolutely bang on the money there, because my friend, the MMA guru.
Oh, he's your friend, is he?
Well, no, listen, man, and he loves it when I talk about him. I'd love to meet him. I'd genuinely love to meet him, because I hear him.
Maybe we can...
people send me the what do you call it, and he's like, "Don't you know the rules?" Yes, I do. You fucking moron. Infinitely better than you. Of course, I know the rule. And he's there going, 2 hands need to be down. No, you're wrong. You're looking at an old document.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's
the whole fucking point. I invited him to one of my courses. Of course, he didn't take up. Yes.
What an idiot, mate, honestly.
Yes, I invited him.
Do you know how expensive it is? You know how much Mark charged?
I'll make a public challenge here. How about MMA Guru comes here, you come here, and we hold a discussion between you two. A fight. We got a half cage over there. But yeah, the two of you sit down. How about the two of you sit down in here? Yeah.
Look, I'm using that as an example. Like when he said, don't you know that? Yeah, of course I know the fucking rule. And it's funny because he was referring to an old document, and I don't blame him really, because this is what perpetuates this ridiculous set of circumstances even further. A few years ago, there was a short period in time where a revision to the rule came out that were requiring both hands down. That quickly went away, and it was adopted back to the old rule with the single hand or fist weight bearing argument. What we're trying to do now is get rid of the hands altogether, just to make it much easier for the fighters to understand, referees to understand and teach and explain. And then hopefully that was going to trickle down into the sport.
What would be the new parameters then for a grounded opponent? Just to be clear,
anything other than, so the hand, one single hand wouldn't cut it. I would need to go down onto a knee, onto a butt, be in a fully grounded position. So if I did put a hand or 2 hands down, the proposition is still there to be kneed or kicked. Yeah,
because coming back to that Arnold Allen one, all the knees, the 3 knees beforehand looked good to me when I was watching it live. And then when Movsar hit the cage, that's when you could maybe call in, that's a bit close, because that was a bit like the Ankalaev.
That's when I did call in, because I'm thinking, fucking, because before that, but you said they look good to you live.
Yeah.
Or you mean on a replay?
To live,
because I could see Arnold was pulling him up. And obviously, I don't know frame by frame whether.
Fuck off.
But I could see he was pulling him up, but I couldn't see if his hand was exact down when the knee hit.
That's why I ignored the first 3. And Arnold, he's a great kid. He's a respectful guy. And I feel for him. I feel for all fighters in general. This is a personal thing to me. I've been doing this for a long time. An awful long time, and I just want the best, without being, I just want the best. This is a combat sport. Not everything's going to be clean, and you're going to, referees, be comfortable with the fact, be very comfortable with the fact your job is making decisions. And unfortunately, those decisions don't please everybody. I'm very well versed in
especially
that.
bettors.
Huh?
People who are gambling there.
I mean, mate, no one gives a fuck about your $50 parlay.
Exactly.
I don't.
I like the idea of the knees, because in that situation, if you've got someone wrapped and you've broken their posture and they can't stand up because you're laying heavy, you should concede position or get kneed in the face, really. You shouldn't be able to be like, okay, I'm not going to give up my standing position and go to the mat, but I'm going to stop you from striking me, because you're basically...
Well, here's what I say to fighters, coming back to being a practitioner as well, is I say, if you're in that position, I am not going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And I'll suggest to them, because if you're in that position and you don't want to be, it takes effort. Okay, if you're tired, you've been, and you get to a tripoded position. So I'm bending over. Okay, by definition, when I'm bent over, my stomach is folded, my chest is over. It's harder to breathe. Okay, so catching your breath when you've had a mad, frantic scramble and you're in a tripod position with your head down is pretty tough. It's hard to do. So I say to them, I suggest to them, if you want me to protect you in that scenario and you don't want to be kneed to the head, is take a knee or sit down. Two things happen. Number one, you're firmly and unquestionably a grounded fighter. You're upright to be able to recover, think and breathe easier. And you got two fucking hands free to wrestle up or clinch or fight
definitely.
back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what
we want to see happen.
About it. Yeah, the same thing.
But listen, in fights, you know, that best laid plans and all that. These guys are out there. The guys and girls are out there.
Protect yourself. Yeah.
They're putting everything on the line, and it's not easy to remember a sequence of events when you're being punched and kneed and kicked in the head. Sounds easy, you know. Like I said, having been there, and I understand it. But from a mechanical point of view, my suggestion, I've always tried to say to look, if you don't want to be kneed in the head, if you are choosing firm hand or your fist down, or even better, take a knee. Sit down, and then, like I said, I'm upright. I'm looking. I can breathe easier. I can see what's coming.
You can sit out as well.
I can sit out, and I'm not literally. And I've got two hands free to clinch or wrestle back. And it's very clear for us, if a knee does come in, no argument, no question.
100%.
You know, kind of quick one on that. So obviously, the idea of grounded knees is a different discussion, but like just kind of going along.
I'm not in favor of that.
That's what I was going to ask.
So here's the thing that I see, at least when you watch Ryzen or you watch One or you watch, you know, the old Pride days, is whenever a wrestler would fail on a takedown, they would end up in a sprawl. And that happens in the UFC. And, you know, you see fighters, they'll try to land punches from that position. But there's essentially no huge punishment. I mean, if they're really good at snagging a choke from there, they can really turn it into a dicey situation. But for the most part, a wrestler fails on a takedown, and they're safe. So that's the only thing I dislike about the rule not being in the current rules now, because if somebody, they can just spam takedowns over and over and over again.
I get it, but let me give you a scenario. We're in a cage, okay? It's not a ring. So if we're close to the apron in a ring, there's space behind you. So let's say, for instance, I take you down against the fence. You're now in a grounded position. Your head is firmly on the mat, and the other side of your head is against the post, okay? I have a guy who's cut to make 265. He's now 280, 285. Arching up, tripoding up and dropping knees onto your skull. Sound like a good idea?
Sounds like Mark Kerr.
It's not good, yeah. And that's what, look, I get it, you know, anything could be potentially critically damaging. We know that, being a standing punch, kick, knee, whatever. But it's about, you know, I think the aesthetic value is also there, the sport value, things have progressed, moved on. I would not be a proponent of grounded knees. We do have a duty of care and responsibility. I know a lot of people go, well, how can you say that? They're being punched, knee kicked in the head, you know, but these guys are being subject to, you know, stringent out of competition, especially at the top, you know, the pre-medicals and obviously the doctors and stuff like that. I'm just not I'm not a fan of grounded knees. I just don't think it's going to solve. And what's it going to solve?
Do you think if we did an anonymous survey, like, do you think most fighters would be for it?
There is an athletes committee.
Oh.
For me, the grounded knees thing it's not a direction that I think we need to head in. And what we also have to consider as well, you think about this aesthetically too, people, you know, the potential removal of the new definition for the grounded fighter. 99.9% of circumstances is you're talking about knees, because the guys are hunched, they're clinched, etc. But we're also potentially ready to see soccer kicks, you know, guys going back and being punted in the face. Are you ready for that aesthetic? Obviously the fans, yeah, of course we are. But in general, you know, there's a lot of mechanics, and that's why this has to go through the proper channels, be deliberated, let other people have their opinions. A lot of experienced, good guys, experts in the US. Take our time. I know it's frustrating, and I can say take our time. I would like to see, you know, a utopia of having everything agreed and sensible, but this is a combat sport, so, and we know that the potential risks are there, so things do move a little bit slower, and I think let's wait and see.
We did see Wes Sims, didn't we? Frank Mir, where we saw the cage.
Where he grabbed the cage.
That was illegal because he was stomping.
It was illegal, but the head against the cage, we saw that. Like, if you think about how Cruz beat Mizugaki, and he just like overhooked him, and just, if he was kneeing him instead of punching him, it would have been.
I'm just saying, guys. You know, like a lot of people, the general public don't think this through. You know, and
why would they? Yeah,
and I'm sure a lot of fighters potentially would be in in favour of it. I don't know. You'd have to ask them or canvass them or whatever. After this thing in Canada, I was pretty fired up because I care and I don't want to be presented with those situations. And I think that for everyone involved, like I said, keep saying it again. First and foremost, the fighters, for them to have a blanket uniform acceptance and understanding of the rules, it's fair to say the least. I'm a fan of. A proponent of the unified rules, and like I said, whilst it may not be the complete finished article, it's near as damn it as it has to be. What we do have to do is obviously underline that word, and let's stick to the definition of unified. That's the first thing. And like I said, we're still a young formative sport. Things are evolving. Like we said, the 12th or 6th elbow should have been out a long time ago, but hopefully that does come out. The clearer definition. What I'd like to do is offer a clearer understanding of what we have first before we start looking at making any further changes. I think we're near as damn it for the sport at the moment. Like I said, it's combat sport. I think a lot of damage potentially can incur in fights. Some MMA fights don't look like MMA. They look like boxing matches or kickboxing matches. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with the unified rules at the moment, but just like you said, the deletion of the 12th or 6th elbow and the tightening up and understanding of grounded fighter, things like that, and I think we're going to be in a much better place.
Would you change anything, Luke?
Yeah, I think we take the gloves off,
yeah,
have a real man's fight. We soccer kicks, no ground, no jiu-jitsu, none of that.
You've been hanging out with Sean Strickland.
Yeah, a man dance.
Well, so
okay. No, I think I'm talking bullshit. I'm just joking.
He's from Southend.
I was about to fucking jump over this table.
You don't do jiu-jitsu, do you?
Yeah.
How many times have you been punched?
By me, or
never. Yes.
The referee and judge course for the education. My next one in the UK is in Leeds in March. GoddardMMA.com. There you go. There is some online content there. Obviously, the courses we're talking about now is the 4 certified courses. When people turn up to be assessed and measured, obviously there's refereeing practicals, judging practicals, a test paper. There is positional and understanding of the sport. There's a lot goes into it. I get a lot of messages from people about inquisitive and inquiring on their potential journey on how to start. That is a good place to start. Arm yourself with some information, and then just like any job or industry or vocation, there's no shortcut. People think that you come and spend a weekend and then be qualified on the Monday. It doesn't work like that. Get the theoretical knowledge and then apply it practically. It takes months and years of dedication to get good at anything. Jiu-jitsu, tennis, football, refereeing in another sport.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Sorry?
Polo.
Never played polo.
Polo. Probably croquet. Yeah.
I've played lawn bowls.
Of course you have.
Yeah.
What's that then?
My grandma.
You haven't hunted, have you, Balian? Horseback.
Only women shouldn't say that.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. But yeah, thank you for the shout out, and hopefully people can go there and find it useful.